Welcome to the World Football Summit podcast, the show for football industry leaders who want to stay ahead of the game. We bring you the latest insights, trends, and stories from the experts driving innovation and progress in sports business worldwide. Join us as we dive deep into the ideas and initiatives transforming the world of football. From sustainability and innovation to player development, fan engagement, and everything in between. Our goal is to unite the global football industry and drive positive change and progress.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I'm your host, Jaime, CMO at World Football Summit. Today, a very dear friend of World Football Summit and someone who understands the latest trends around social, content, and driving revenue from audience creation like few others in the industry do. Kike Levy, currently leading the sports and media vertical at NFJ Holdings, is our guest on this week's episode. This was a fun one as we deep dive into everything related to sports content, trends, frameworks, the future of sports content, technology. We also talk about fan engagement and lessons from other sports disciplines or the event industry. I have interviewed Kike in the past, and I must admit, I always learn new stuff while also having an awesome time, whether it's on a panel or a blog, you name it. Before we go into it though, don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, where every week we send updates, trends, and everything that goes on at our events. You can find the link in the show notes. Remember, in 2024, we have events in London, where actually Kike is a confirmed speaker. We have Mexico, we have Sevilla. You can check it all out on our website, and hopefully we'll meet you there. And now, let's welcome Kike Levy to talk all things sports content. Kike, so I've interviewed you for a newsletter. I've met you at panels. I've moderated panels with you. I've never had you on the podcast. Welcome to the World Football Summit podcast.
Thank you. Finally, yeah, I was really looking forward to it. Yeah, I think it was the only piece that I was missing on the World Football Summit universe
So far, I'll make something up. No worries. Anyway, Kike, we're gonna talk about a lot of things today. Before we do, I was wondering if you could briefly introduce yourself. And I always like to ask my guest, why is it that you do what you do?
Good question. So I've been in the sport industry for my whole career almost, except almost 1 year that I did in finance, and I soon realized that it was not for me. I started my career at Real Madrid, prior to finish university, where I joined a newly created department at that time, which was the digital strategy department. Then I transferred into influence sports and media, which was a great experience to get to know the insights of the industry and how the industry works from a business perspective. And at Twitter, I had the lack of being at the intersection between the big tech companies that were growing at that moment when I joined, and the sport industry, managing the relationship on the media partnership department as head of sports. And after almost 5 years, I moved into Meta, where I spent my last 6 years also working at the intersection between big tech companies and the sport industry, which gives you a very interesting perspective on what's going on the industry, because you're not so deep into the industry that you only see what's going on day to day, but you have like a wider view of what's going on. And since October, I partnered with NJF Holdings to launch NJF Sports and Media, looking to invest into technology companies in the sport world to revolutionize the industry, or at least that's our ambition.
Well, congratulations on such an interesting career so far, because I think there's a lot left there, no? I want to start this conversation, Kike, talking about content, because it's something that you and I have discussed over the years, and when you think about it, sports is, in terms of interest, at an all-time high. Problem is, there's so many ways to consume sports nowadays. It's not only the live matches, no? There's your documentaries, you have your TV series, your Ted Lassos, no? You have your video games, everything, no? But what is your view on that? I mean, because yes, we do have a lot of content, but what's next?
What's next is it's hard to guess, especially at the speed that technology is moving. It's true that, and I completely agree with you that we are at an all-time high when it comes to consumption of sports content. I think sports bring people together like little else does in the world of entertainment. If you think about any other content, nothing brings together people the way a sport does. And people are consuming sports in multiple different ways. There's a lot of people that argue that, sports is not reaching younger generations, that the way of consuming content is changing very fast. But I think that now people are consuming more content than ever. If you think about when we were like 20 years ago, when we were kids, or you think about our father's generation, they used to consume sports live on TV, then get access to some content on the news. But there was no direct interaction with the sport properties itself, with the leagues, with the teams. So it's a very interesting time where you see people consuming content, not just live, but on demand. Short form content has exploded. The distribution that you see on social media platform and engagement around sport content is phenomenal. And I think this trend will only continue to grow over time. And the sport industry needs to do a better job in reaching fans where they are. But for sure, we're going to see very, very interesting developments and new business opportunities coming up from this changing environment.
Before we get to that, actually, aren't we already at a point where it's too much content? Would you say that or no? Would you agree?
No, I think now you have the luxury to choose, actually, because if you think about, as I was saying, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you were constrained to consume the content that was aired on TV. And you had always someone deciding which content you were going to consume. In the world of today, you can choose what content you want to engage with. And sport properties are talking directly to fans via owned and operated channel or via social channels or digital platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. So having this power to choose is what makes me think that we're not getting into a saturation point. Because at the end of the day, fans can choose what content they consume, and the content is available in multiple ways, and you decide also the best way to consume. So this also interoperability of platforms, and it's not only about watching taking football, for example, watching the 90-minute live on TV. It's also engaging with the highlights. It's also looking at the content that the athletes or the teams are producing, looking at the content that the leagues are producing. So you have many different options, and user has the power to choose the way they want to consume it. So I don't think we're going to get to a saturation point. And the offer now, it's huge. And more than a saturation of content, I think the real challenge is how you reach or you gain the attention of users when the offer is so wide and big.
To your point, though, it's not only that you get the attention competing with other sports or other teams or other whatever in football. Now, the attention game is a battle between other forms of entertainment, right? So, your TV series or your Netflix or whatever, no? But I'm wondering, okay, I get that. There's a lot of flexibility. That's kind of like the advantage, and that's why we're not going to get to that saturation point. So following up on that, what are we going to see next? How is this going to evolve?
It's hard to say because it's going to depend a lot on not only on the platform and the technology and how the technology evolves, but also how the sport properties will address these changes. But I think the future is going towards the personalization of the experience, and that's for me is the biggest challenge, and at the same time is the biggest opportunity of the sport industry today. Because in sports, there's a lot of one-size-fits-all approach. If you watch a content, if you watch a live game on TV, everyone is getting more or less the same experience. When you go to the stadium, everyone kind of gets the same experience. And the sport industry in general and football in particular need to do a very job in how you personalize this experience. So how you're going to make the consumption of the live game different for different type of audiences. Maybe it's by things that we see today, like changing the commentary, or choosing the cameras, or engaging with the content somehow. I think to reach new audiences, the key is personalization of the experience and how you make these new audiences participate in some way. When I was at Meta and we did the partnership with La Liga, where we broadcast all the games in India for three seasons, it was a groundbreaking deal. Before that, no league was going directly to users for free in any market for all the games. So it was a big bet from La Liga and from Meta as well. And one thing we realized is that people that were engaging with the content somehow we were doing polls during the game. We were asking questions and reading in the comments. So people that were participating actively send a message or engaging in one of the polls or in one of the opportunities that we were giving them to participate were watching the content on average like 20% longer than users that were more passive in a way. So the personalization and the participation are the two areas that I think will need more investment and where the biggest opportunity we're going to see in the next in the upcoming years.
Cool. That actually makes me think of one of the things we discussed in one of the interviews I did for the blog with you. And we were speaking, you told me about an awesome framework, which I always keep in my mind, which is first, football clubs need to create an audience, which is what basically you're telling me, with personalization, you're going to create new audiences. But then I'm looking at other forms of entertainment like video games. They are able to move fans down the funnel, if you will, much more efficiently and convert, and I hate to say this word because everybody hates it, but monetize it. So what's the key there?
Yeah, I think, and this is something that you see very often, is how are we going to turn fans into customers? I think it's not possible. And I think it's not possible because a fan is not a customer in a traditional way. Yes, they consume they consume content. Yes, you do some transaction with them, but there's always this behind a fan. There's always this passion that you need to fulfill. So it's not a customer in a traditional way. You cannot turn fans into customer. You need to think about the fan experience and how you're going to make that experience better in order to monetize. The most important thing is start building your community and start building your audience. So that start with content, that start with the experiences that you develop and the products you develop. And once you have that audience is when you can start about thinking about monetizing. So video games, for example, has been a very good example of this approach where they started building huge audiences around the content franchises that they develop. And then within the game, within the experience of the game, you get different points where the audience get monetized. I think we're going to see more of that approach into the sport world and in the football world, because in a world where we see in the traditional model under stress, with media rights arguably going down or at least stagnating, looking at the last figures, with sponsorship and brands becoming more sophisticated on the way they think about their sponsorship deals and the return on investment. Brands will need to, and in general, sport properties will need to come up with more smart approach around how to monetize fans. But the key and the core of everything, it's building your audience and make sure that you have an active community around your property.
It's funny because when you look at other industries, they want to do it the other way around. They want to create customers into fans. Why? Because once I have you as a customer, what a fan at the end of the day is loyal, right? So your team loses, you don't change teams. If a product fails, you don't buy that product again. No, so it's really when everybody talks to me about, no, we want to make a fan into a customer, I say, why is the rest of the world trying to do the contrary? No, and one of the things about fans, as we said, is they're loyal. But now what I'm seeing with today's trend is these fans, they are more connected to players than teams, or at least that's what I see. So what is the role in terms of creating content that the players create as content creators for their personal brand, but also for the club's benefit?
I really believe that athletes are going to play a pivotal role in the next years and in the next cycles of media rights value and in the distribution of the content. I'm a big believer on using athletes as distribution channel for the content. If you think media rights deal today, athletes are not allowed to use the content. In general, when I was at Meta, when I was at Twitter, one of the most common problems that I faced with working with athletes was they didn't have the right to use the content. They were not informed that they didn't have the right to use the content. So they were using the content and automatically with the IP protection that you have in place in the different platforms, they were receiving reports. And in some cases, we had some athletes that got even their accounts suspended because they were violating the copyright of the rights holder of the league, of La Liga or the Champions League, you name it. And I think this is something that has to change because we were talking before how younger fans are changing the way they consume content and athletes are becoming more relevant. There's a famous quote of Alex Ferguson where he said, no player is bigger than the club. But if you look at social media, that's not true. Every sport property has at least one athlete that it's bigger than the own property. I think the only three cases are Real Madrid, Barca, and Manchester United, that we could be, that they don't have a player that has more followers than the team. We saw that with Messi when he moved to Miami. Like Miami went from a couple of 100,000 followers to millions of followers in a matter of 24 hours. That tells you that people, and especially younger generations, are following more the athletes than the sport properties. And that means that we will need to change the way we are distributing the content and rely more on athletes to get bigger distribution and reach new audiences. That's for sure. It's one of the biggest opportunities that we have when it comes to distributing content and reaching new audiences, because the power of athletes to distribute content in terms of reaching audiences is far bigger than the power of sport properties or even broadcasters. I like to look at if you think about the football industry as a marketing funnel, your upper funnel strategy, it's with the athletes because it's where you're going to reach a bigger audience. After the athletes, you have down the funnel, you have the teams, which are the second player with the highest distribution. Then you have the leagues, and at the end you have the sponsors and the broadcaster, which are the ones that have the lowest distribution, but the ones that are generating more value, that are basically paying for the whole party. So the challenge will be how we're going to make these audiences in the upper funnel that relies on the athletes and on the team being monetized more effectively.
It makes sense. And I'm trying to tie all the knowledge you've shared so far. And we talked about personalization. And we look at players, they're a big part of that. First of all, because the players enable fans to get closer to the game at the end of the day. Second, because if I'm a Real Madrid fan, I may be from Brazil, for example. I'm probably going to be more interested in content about Vinicius or Rodrigo. Let's just put that example. Versus if I'm in England, I'm born in England, I probably am going to be more interested in content by Jude Bellingham, no? So at the end of the day, that helps clubs reach new audiences, much more targeted, if you will. Of course, you have the risk that when they leave, just as happened with Ronaldo or Messi, these fans move along. But I think there's still that affinity with the club.
Yeah, something will stay.
Exactly.
For sure.
Right? I mean, someone who's a Messi fan is also going to be a Barca fan. I doubt they're going to start supporting Madrid. I really doubt it. You know?
Yeah, because at the end, when you're attached to a player, you're attached to the whole history of the player.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for sure that you're gonna have some affinity, and you're gonna be able to monetize it somehow as a club. That's why relying on athletes, some people in the industry has the vision that, you know, if you give too much protagonism to the athletes, you know, maybe you're not building into your own brand. But I don't agree with that approach. I think everything helps, and at the end, yes, some people will move maybe and change team, but there always there's always some affinity that stays there.
And that's what the fan is, right?
Yeah.
It's loyal, beyond, let's say, those rationality.
Yeah, you were saying before, I think sports and football in particular is the only industry or the only consumer product where you can treat very bad your customer, and they are going to they're going to still be loyal and buying your product, because even if your team is losing, you're not going to change the team.
You're not
just
the team.
You maybe have sympathy for others. You start consuming other content, but you always have this affinity. Like, look at the story of Deportivo La Coruña. You know, they just came back from the third division to the second division in Spain, coming back to professional football. And yesterday you had 30,000 people at Riazor watching the game, and it felt like a professional La Liga game, and it reminded us to the old times of the Super Depot when they won the league. The images were the same. And if you think about it, Deportivo has been treating bad their fans for the last 6 years, losing game after game and getting into the third division from the top level in Spain. So that's a good example of this power and passion of football.
Well, I'm an example of that because I'm a supporter of Racing de Santander. They were also down in the third division, and now they're fighting to go back to the first division, and that would be so amazing. And there's been, challenging years there, no? And so we talked about community, we talked about technology, personalizing. Okay, so I don't know if there's any, just to close up this segment, I don't know if there's any other things that football properties should do to capitalize this momentum. If there's another sports property that comes to mind within football, outside of football, whatever comes to mind that they're actually working on, are there an example of good content marketing?
There are many examples of that this football industry can look to try to find inspiration and best practices. Obviously, looking at American sports, NBA, NFL, they always, Americans are very good at building and selling their products and building the entertainment around sports. But we also have very, very interesting examples in Europe as well. Look at the work that F1 is doing, and how they develop new content format, long-form content format, and documentary series like Drive to Survive, and that helped the sport reaching new audiences and develop it in new markets and opening the US market. If you look at what the work that MotoGP is doing, which I think is one of the best examples of how to manage your content effectively, especially if you look at the digital strategy. SailGP, it's another good one. Yeah. That how they are taking the sailing world and translating that specific language of the sailing world to try to talk to a wider audience, and they are not just they change miles per hour, or I don't know how you say in English the how you measure the speed of boats, but how they're using kilometers per hour so everyone can understand. How you talk about left and right, not the using the terms of the terminology of sailing. I think this is very important. How you take your property and talk to a wider audience and adapt the product in a way that is easy to understand for everyone. For me, one of the best examples of content marketing, it's Red Bull, and the work they do is phenomenal. Not just with their sponsorship, but also how they're owning stream sports, and they're always world class in creating content and experience. These are just to name a few, but the list it's very, very big.
I like something you said there, which is if you want to reach new audiences, you really need to make it easy for new people because they're not fans yet to follow the sport, which is something that Formula One did in the United States. And that's why it was a huge success. No? I'm wondering, we're talking about content. What about the Kings League? Is this complement to football? Is this a threat to football? Is this the future of football? What's your thought?
I think it's a complement, 100%. It's a great entertainment product that has football in the background. Football is at the center of it, but what is phenomenal about the Kings League is that they built entertainment product around the sport. And this is a way to reach new audiences that for sure will complement the traditional business. So I don't see it as a threat at all. And I like to see more of this, more of creating entertainment products based on sports, because at the end, sports is not just about the content that you can create or the entertainment. It's also about the values, and at the end, these products transfer the values of a sport, the competition, the fair play, all these things that we always talk about when we talk about sports. It's these are transferred as well to the new product, and if it helps reaching new audiences, it will for sure be a good thing. Another example is with boxing, all the fights that we're seeing between content creators and influencers. You know what Ibai is doing with boxing in Spain. It's phenomenal. Probably if you take the best boxing champions of Spanish history, nobody has done a fight at the Bernabeu with 80,000 people. And Ibai is doing that. You know, you can argue if it's boxing, not boxing. Maybe if you go to the purist people, they will say, you know, this is not boxing, it's a show. Yes, it's a show, but at least, it has the sport at the center. And I think these entertainment products will become more and more popular, and will be a vehicle to reach new audiences.
Yeah, I think your answer, I like it because you said football is the essence. At the end of the day, this comes back to a conversation I had with Peter Moore, former CEO of Liverpool, and he also had a fantastic career in the video games industry. And what he was saying is that video games accelerate football. And I think this is the same thing, because it's a new way to become a fan of the sport, but the essence is still the same, right? And I like the way you said, you know, this is an entertainment product based on football. That's going to widen your funnel at the end of the day, no?
And I think there's a lot the other way around, that the football can learn from the Kings League. I'm not telling you that you're gonna change completely the format and start doing, you know, wild cards and these kind of things that they have. But there's for sure things that they are doing from an entertainment perspective that the football should somehow apply to the
model. Yeah, because it doesn't really go against the legacy of the game, I would say, which is, I think, the key here, no? Another industry that's actually combining a lot with football lately is fashion. And I want to know your opinion, because you also, you know, you are very interested in the fashion industry, if I'm not mistaken. And to me, what I find is interesting is that football properties are now entering, or they're trying to enter, pop culture through fashion, no? So how do you see that landscape evolving?
There's many examples and case studies of how sports has been power for fashion. And I use the word power because I think sports helps fashion transcends to culture. Think about the Air Jordan brand. Think this is the best example of how you can combine fashion and sports and create a cultural icon, relying on the power of both industries. The sponsorship that LVMH is doing of some of the Olympics with the different brands. The fact that Louis Vuitton has been historically the case manufacturer for the World Cup trophy. These are all examples that show you how powerful this phenomenon can be. And it is very powerful because at the end, sports is the only by appointment content that is out there. In a world where everything is consumed on demand, sports is the only thing that bring people together at the same place, at the same time, to consume one content. And this power to drive this attention, it's also a great opportunity for fashion brands to be relevant. In every football game, you have a red carpet moment. So fashion brands used to need to wait to the fashion week, to wait for the big events like the Met Gala, like the Oscars, like the Grammys, to showcase their designs in a red carpet. With football, you can do it every weekend. Look at Jules Koundé, the type of content he's creating. You can like his style more or less, but the fact that he's becoming a fashion icon, there's no question or argument about it. He has become a fashion icon. Sinner, the tennis player, he signed a sponsorship with Gucci, and he walks in Wimbledon, the Grand Slam, with a Gucci bag on it, which is giving Gucci the opportunity to reach a new target of customers, because maybe people were not thinking about using their Gucci bag to go to play tennis. And now, because they see Sinner, they want to, that message appeal to them, they may think about using it. So I think bringing together sport and fashion, it's one of the most powerful partnership you can bring, because athletes are icons and people follow what athletes are doing, and they can set trends, and fashion, it's always looking to how to set the next trend, what's going to be next. So all these events and all these red carpet moments are a huge opportunity for the fashion industry.
Yeah, definitely. And what I'm thinking now is, okay, what's a sports marketer to do? Because I mean, content and fan behavior around content changes all the time. Technology changes. New trends appear, like, this alignment between fashion and football or sport, whatever you want to call it. So how does what one piece of advice would you share with sports marketers?
That they need to try to be ahead of the game and identify the trends that are coming. Don't close your eyes. Test and learn. It's not about looking of what you've been doing for a long time. You need to think about what's coming next and try different things. The most important thing is to try different things. Don't be afraid of doing mistake. If you look at the football industry in general, I think the industry is not an industry of innovator. In many areas, like in many areas, there is an industry that is innovating all the time, but it's more an industry of followers. Like when you go to a football club and they need to test something new, the first question you always get typically is like, okay, who has done this before? Like, do you have any case study or any example that you can show me? There are very few brands that are brave enough to take the risk and say, let's do it, let's try. So the most important thing is have an open mind, flexibility, and test and learn as you go. This is something that you get when you're working in a big tech company like Twitter or Meta, because you see that when one of these companies release a product, it's never perfect. There are always millions of mistakes, but the sooner you get the product out there and the sooner you start learning about the user experience, the faster you're going to optimize that strategy. So that product. So the strategy should not be, I want to have the perfect product to take it to market. It's like try different things, and stay close to data. I think, and everyone talks about data, but the more you know about your fans, the more valuable they become.
Yeah.
So there's no point on getting millions and millions of views and followers for the sake of getting views and followers. You need to understand who's behind these views, these followers, this engagement. Those are very valuable metrics. And the more you invest in knowing your fans, the better service and the more value you will extract for them.
I want to thank you for that answer. I love it, because we actually went back to the framework we discussed a few years ago when you told me clubs need to create their audience, which we discussed today, monetize, and then the next step is to innovate, which is essentially what you're saying just now. So it's just amazing. We just closed the loop, and I really like that. Kike, one more question on my end, and I really need to get your opinion on this. As you know, in September, we launched a rebrand at World Football Summit. Now, we believe the football industry needs to become more professional. It needs to embrace innovation, to your point, and it needs to adopt sustainability as a priority. And when I speak about sustainability, I refer to it from its three pillars: financial, social, environmental. We summarized all of this under a claim that says the football we want, the football we need. So my question to you, if you were to, in 1-2 sentences, describe the football you want, the football you need, how would you do it?
The football I want is a football that is able to connect with the next generation of fans in order to transfer all the values and all the beauty of the sports to this generation. The risk is that if we lose the connection with the next generation, we may not be able to transfer these values effectively. So the football I want and the football I need, it's a football that thinks about what you mentioned, sustainability, that thinks about how to reach new fans, how to create new business models, how to create better experiences for fans in order to engage with this future generation and be able to transfer the values of sports. Because I think the best that football has is the values.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. It's all about values and the emotions and the stories that only football can create, and be able to pass on through generations. So thank you for that answer. Overall, thank you for this masterclass, Kike. This has been so much fun. I could, just go on asking questions for hours. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Where can people learn more about you? Anything, floor is yours.
I'm really looking forward to see what's going to come on the upcoming events, the Football Innovation Forum and the World Football Summit Americas. Looking at the roster of speakers that you're going to have and the topics that are going to be discussed, it's very promising. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I encourage everyone to follow these events closely, because I'm sure there are a lot of insights that will be shared. And if you are a sport marketer, you cannot be disconnected from these trends. So to close, I think I encourage everyone to follow these events that are coming up. Give this advice of don't be afraid. Just try, test, and learn, and think about how you can innovate and deliver a better experience for fans. Because at the end of the day, this whole industry is built on content and experiences, and finding good ways to deliver that content and that experience. It's the key to success.
Those are, a fantastic way to end. And definitely we'll be seeing you in a few days for Football Innovation Forum. I think it's going to be great. Thank you for joining. And thank you for joining this podcast, sharing so much knowledge. And, we're going to have to do a round two, or I'll have to think of something to kind of, keep you coming back.
Really, really looking forward to it. I'll keep you posted also on how things progress my side with my new adventure. And I'm sure we'll do a new episode very soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, Kike. And there you have him, Kike Levy. As I said, this was a fun one. Let me try to summarize the main takeaways for me. We were speaking about how, there's more content than ever, and that's actually helping reach new fans and actually engage like never before. I would argue content is set to become the next big pillar of the sports business model. It helps amplify the funnel by creating personalized content at scale, but it enables conversion through different stages of that funnel. Now, the difference now is that, fans can actually choose the sports content that they want, which, enables more relevance to grab more attention. Look out for the future, because probably the next big wave of content creation is going to evolve around personalization and how that is going to enable further degrees of engagement. And remember, engagement leads to revenues. Now, it's interesting because one of the things that we were discussing is that a fan is not a customer. But, it's something that I'm really thinking about lately, which is, the sports industry seems to be quote unquote obsessed about turning fans into customers. But when you look at other industries, it's actually the other way around. Brands are trying to create customers and convert them into fans. Why? Because a fan has a higher degree of loyalty. Think about it. When you get mad at a product, you probably will never buy that product or service again. But when your team loses, you still keep following that team around. So that's that degree of loyalty. Anyway, I digress. The thing is that content helps build community. And in that sense, we also talked about how athletes are going to be a key lever for clubs because they help reach new audiences, they help with distribution, but, also fans today relate better to a player because of the values, because of whatever personal story, you name it, whatever. The thing is, how do sports properties involve the player in that content creation scheme? When we discussed about different properties, the main conclusion there was that the key is to make it very simple to consume content. Think about Formula One and how they were able to create, a massive following in the United States just because they created a documentary that anybody was able to follow. So how can you make it simple for fans to actually engage and follow your content? At the end of the day, content, like we discussed with Peter Moore in the video game industry, helps accelerate sport. The key is that football, as Kike says, is the essence. Whatever you create around it, it's just going to be, different ways to tap into different fan behaviors. Going back to that personalization piece, right? But again, football is always the essence. And, the thing is, sports bring people together to consume an event around one single event, actually. And, the entertainment industry is not able to do that just yet. Finally, two things. Remember the framework that we actually discussed with Kike a few years ago. First, you need to create an audience, then monetize that audience. But the final step is to actually innovate, to test new ways to create content, to engage, to drive new fans. Obviously, this will imply, certain failures, but more than failures, it's lessons that you're going to be able to learn. So anyway, remember that framework: audience, monetize, and innovate. And finally, the football Kike wants, it's actually one that, technology helps properties connect with future fans, and transfer the values that are inherent in football across generations. That's a beautiful way to end, right? Anyway, did anything else stand out to you? If so, make sure you reach out on social media. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, where every week we send updates, trends, and everything that goes on at our events. Nothing else from my side, I think. I just want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it, you learned something new, you had fun, and have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time.